My sister hid she was adopted for 16 years while secretly dating my fiancé behind my back. I crashed their wedding and exposed their affair in front of his religious parents, then discovered the baby wasn't even his. I, 32F, never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here we are. This all started 3 years ago when my fiancé of 4 years, James, 34M, suddenly broke up with me. He gave me some vague reasons about growing apart and wanting different things. It hurt like hell, but I respected his decision and tried to move on with my life. Fast forward 6 months, and I find out through mutual friends that James is dating my younger sister, Megan, 28F. I was absolutely blindsided. When I confronted Megan, she claimed they just connected after running into each other at a coffee shop, and that it was totally random. She swore up and down that nothing happened while James and I were together. I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. I tried to be mature about it. I kept my distance from both of them and focused on rebuilding my life. I moved to a different part of the city, started a new job, and even began dating again. I thought I was doing pretty well, all things considered. Then last week, I received a wedding invitation. Not personally, it was sent to my parents' house where I was staying for the weekend. Megan and James were getting married in just 2 weeks. 2 weeks. My entire family knew except me. My parents admitted they'd been hiding it from me because they were worried about my reaction. Apparently, Megan had told them not to tell me until the last minute because she was afraid I would try to ruin things. I was furious. Not just about them getting married, but about the secrecy and manipulation. So I decided to go to the wedding uninvited. On the day of, I walked into the reception during their first dance. I didn't make a scene or yell or anything dramatic. I just stood there at the entrance, holding a glass of champagne I grabbed from a server. When they saw me, the entire room went silent. James looked like he'd seen a ghost, and Megan burst into tears. That's when my cousin Amy rushed over and pulled me aside. She told me something I'll never forget. James and Megan had been seeing each other for over a year before he broke up with me. My dad's 60th birthday party, the Christmas dinner, even the weekend I was sick and Megan offered to check in on James for me. They were sleeping together the entire time. I walked straight up to their table, put down the champagne glass, and said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, "Congratulations. I hope you're both happy with the choices you made. I just wanted to see the look on your faces when you realized you couldn't hide from what you did." Then I left. No screaming, no cake throwing, nothing that could make me look like the crazy ex. Since then, my phone has been blowing up. Half my family thinks I'm a vindictive bitch who ruined Megan's special day. The other half is on my side but thinks I should have taken the high road. My parents are devastated that their daughters are at war. James's family has actually reached out to apologize to me, which I didn't expect. So, Reddit, aita for showing up uninvited to confront the sister and ex who betrayed me and lied to everyone for years. The day after the wedding, I woke up to 37 missed calls and about 100 text messages. Most were from family members either condemning me or supporting me, but there were 3 voicemails from James that I couldn't bring myself to listen to until I'd had at least 2 cups of coffee. In the messages, James was actually apologizing? He said he needed to talk to me in person and asked if we could meet at the coffee shop where we had our first date. Seriously, the audacity. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I got there, James looked like hell. Still in his rumpled wedding clothes from the night before. Apparently, he'd slept in his car. The reception fell apart after I left. Megan had a complete meltdown, screaming that I'd ruined everything on purpose. She admitted to their affair in front of everyone, including James's ultra-religious parents who had no idea about any of this. "I never meant for things to happen this way," James said, staring into his untouched coffee. "We were going to tell you eventually." I just laughed. Eventually? It's been 3 years, James. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Megan is pregnant. 3 months along. They rushed the wedding because his parents would disown him if they had a child out of wedlock. The timeline hit me like a truck. They were still seeing each other while he was trying to win me back last year. Remember when I mentioned in my first post that we'd started dating again? Yeah, that was during a break he and Megan were on. I asked why he'd even tried to reconcile with me if he was still involved with my sister. His answer? I was confused. "I loved you both." I walked out. Blocked his number. Blocked Megan's too. But the drama wasn't over. That night, my cousin Amy showed up at my apartment with a stack of screenshots. She'd been collecting evidence of their affair for years. Text messages, dating app profiles they'd used to meet up secretly, hotel receipts. All with timestamps that proved they'd been seeing each other since before my engagement to James. Amy had tried to tell me once before, but I didn't believe her. The next day, I sent those screenshots to our entire family group chat, including James's parents. Then I muted the conversation and took myself on a spa day. The nuclear fallout began while I was getting a massage. My phone buzzed nonstop. When I finally checked it, I discovered that Megan had been uninvited from Thanksgiving, Christmas, and our grandparents' 50th anniversary party. James's mother had called my mother to apologize personally. My dad, who I've never seen cry, Left me a voicemail where he was openly sobbing, begging for forgiveness for not believing me. Then came the twist. 2 days ago, James's best friend Tyler called me. Turns out, the pregnancy might not even be James's. Megan had apparently been seeing Tyler too, around the same time. Tyler had only found out when James drunkenly called him after the wedding disaster, asking him to be the godfather. Yesterday, my parents showed up at my door. They'd kicked Megan out of their house, where she'd been staying since the wedding implosion. My mom handed me a letter from Megan, but I haven't opened it yet. I'm not sure I want to. The kicker? James's parents have invited me to dinner next week. They want to make amends and hear my side of the story. I haven't decided if I'm going. I feel strangely empty. I thought exposing them would feel better, but watching my family implode isn't the victory I imagined. Part of me wants to leave town for a while, just disappear until the dust settles. Another part wants to stay and watch them face the consequences. I still haven't opened Megan's letter. It's sitting on my coffee table, taunting me. Should I read it? Burn it? Mail it back unopened? And what about dinner with James's parents? Is that just asking for more drama, or might it actually help me move on? I finally opened Megan's letter. 3 days of staring at that envelope, picking it up, putting it down, almost burning it twice. I even ran it under hot water to try seeing through the paper, didn't work. Finally, at 2 a.m. after 2 glasses of wine, I ripped it open. It wasn't an apology. It was a confession. Turns out her relationship with James wasn't the only secret she'd been keeping. Remember how her parents always favored Megan growing up? The dance recitals they never missed, while skipping half my soccer games? The car they bought her for graduation while I got a used bike? Apparently, there was a reason for all that. She's not my biological sister. According to her letter, she found out when she was 16 after snooping through our parents' files looking for her birth certificate. She found adoption papers instead. Our parents had sworn her to secrecy, saying they'd tell me when the time was right. But they never did. She wrote that she always felt like she had to earn her place in the family. That's why she competed with me for everything. Grades, friends, attention. And James? In her words, I didn't even like him at first. I just wanted to prove I could take him from you. The pregnancy is real, but she doesn't know if it's James's or Tyler's. She ended the letter saying she doesn't expect forgiveness, but wanted me to know the whole truth. I called my parents immediately. My mom answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting by the phone. When I asked about the adoption, the line went silent for so long I thought the call dropped. Then my dad got on the line, and his voice broke as he confirmed everything. They adopted Megan when I was 4, after her biological parents, apparently close friends of theirs, died in an accident. We wanted to tell you both when you were older, my dad said. But then it never seemed like the right time. I hung up. Threw my phone across the room. 32 years of lies. I decided to go to dinner with James's parents after all. Figured I had nothing left to lose. They chose an upscale restaurant downtown. The kind with tiny portions and waiters who judge your wine selection. When I arrived, James's mom hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. His dad just kept shaking his head and muttering disgraceful under his breath. Over appetizers I barely touched, they explained that James and Megan had been uninvited from their country club. Their church group was praying for the family. Then his mom slid a check across the table. For $50,000. For your pain and suffering, she said, like I'd been in a car accident instead of a relationship with their son. I slid it back. I don't want your money. Please, his dad insisted. We need to make this right. That's when I realized this dinner wasn't about making amends. It was about damage control. Their reputation in their snobby social circle was taking a hit, and they thought they could buy my silence. I stood up, dropped my napkin on my untouched lobster bisque, and said, your son and my sister deserve each other. I'm not the one you should be worried about. Later that night, cousin Amy called to tell me Megan had moved in with Tyler, not James. Apparently, after a paternity test showed Tyler was the father, James kicked her out. Now James is telling everyone he was manipulated by Megan. Classic. I decided I needed space from all of them. I called my boss, requested a month of accumulated vacation time, and booked a flight to Greece. Always wanted to go there. Why not now? The morning of my flight, someone knocked on my door at 6 a.m. It was James, unshaven and reeking of booze. I made a terrible mistake, he slurred, swaying in my doorway. Which one? I asked. The cheating? The lying? The marriage? Or coming here right now? He tried to push past me into my apartment, but I blocked the door. I never stopped loving you, he insisted, reaching for my face. I stepped back. I stopped loving you the moment I found out who you really are. Something in my voice must have finally gotten through to him. He stared at me for a long moment, then turned and stumbled down the hallway. I watched until the elevator doors closed behind him, then finished packing. At the airport, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Tyler. I'm sorry for everything. Megan's in therapy now. We're trying to figure things out before the baby comes. Good for them, I guess. I've been in Santorini for 2 weeks now. Rented a little villa overlooking the water. Every morning I wake up to blue skies and bluer ocean. No family drama. No lying exes. Just me, some books, and an alarming amount of tzatziki. My parents have called every day. I've let most go to voicemail. We've texted a bit. They want to start fresh when I get back. Not sure what that means yet. Yesterday, I met a local guy who owns a boat tour company. He offered to take me island hopping for free if I helped him improve his website. First man I've talked to in weeks who doesn't know my history or my family. It felt normal. I'm supposed to fly home next week. Part of me wants to extend my stay. Maybe even look for work here. Start over somewhere no one knows me as the girl whose fiancé married her sister. But another part knows running away won't solve anything. James sent an email yesterday. Subject line, the rings. Apparently, he still has my engagement ring. Wants to know what to do with it. I told him to sell it and donate the money to a charity that supports victims of emotional abuse. Haven't heard back. I don't know what I'm returning to when I go home. My family is fractured. My trust is shattered. But strangely, I feel stronger than I have in years. Like I finally burned away all the dead wood in my life. The real question now is, do I even want to repair things with Megan and my parents? Or is it better to just start building something new from the ashes? I just got back from Greece last night, and I need to process everything that's happened since my last update. It's been a wild ride, so grab a drink and settle in. The flight home was uneventful, but as soon as I turned on my phone at the airport, it exploded with notifications. Missed calls from my parents, expected, texts from Amy, also expected, and, surprise, a series of increasingly frantic messages from Megan. The last one just said hospital. Please come. After 3 weeks of Mediterranean sunshine and much-needed distance, I was tempted to ignore it. But something in my gut told me this wasn't just another manipulation tactic. I grabbed a cab straight from the airport. When I got to the hospital, I found Megan alone in a private room, hooked up to monitors. No James. No Tyler. No parents. Her face was pale, eyes red and puffy. For a second, I almost turned around and walked out. I lost the baby, she said before I could say anything. Tyler left as soon as it happened. Said he wasn't ready to be a father anyway. I stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to say. Part of me thought she deserved it after everything she'd done. Another part remembered how we used to stay up late as kids, building blanket forts and promising to always have each other's backs. Where are Mom and Dad? I finally asked. I didn't call them. I called you. Those 5 words hit harder than I expected. I pulled up a chair and sat with her until the doctor came in for rounds. No one else showed up. The next day, I helped Megan check out of the hospital and took her to my apartment. She slept on my couch while I unpacked and tried to figure out what to do next. Around midnight, I heard her crying softly. Why did you help me? She asked when she realized I was standing there. After everything I did? I didn't have a good answer. Because no one should go through that alone. We talked until sunrise. Really talked, for the first time in years. She told me more about finding out she was adopted, about feeling like she was living in my shadow. I told her how betrayed I felt, not just by her affair with James, but by the lifetime of competition and sabotage. I was so jealous of you, she admitted. You were their real daughter. And you were the daughter they chose, I countered. By morning, we weren't exactly friends again, but something had shifted. We agreed to start therapy. Separately and eventually together. 2 days later, James showed up at my door again. This time sober, carrying a small box. I sold the ring, he said, handing me the box. Inside was a receipt for a donation to a domestic violence shelter. For exactly the amount the ring was worth. I don't expect forgiveness, he continued. I just wanted you to know I did what you asked. I closed the door without saying a word. The real surprise came a week later. My parents invited me to dinner, just the 3 of us. I agreed, mostly because I was tired of avoiding them. When I arrived at their house, they were sitting at the kitchen table with a thick folder in front of them. We've made a terrible mistake, my dad started. Many mistakes, actually. They slid the folder toward me. Inside were photos, letters, birth certificates, the complete history they'd kept hidden. They explained how Megan's parents had been their best friends in college. How after the accident, they'd promised to raise Megan as their own. How they'd overcompensated out of guilt and grief. We thought we were protecting both of you, my mom said, tears streaming down her face. Instead, we damaged your relationship beyond repair. I wanted to be angry, to yell and scream about the years of lies. Instead, I just felt tired. Why tell me now? Because we're selling the house, my dad said. Starting fresh. We've bought a smaller place across town. No more secrets, no more lies. As I was leaving, my mom handed me a small, worn teddy bear I didn't recognize. "This was yours," she said. "You gave it to Megan the day we brought her home. You told her it would keep the monsters away." I took the bear, memories flooding back of a frightened little girl with big eyes who suddenly appeared in our home. How I'd wanted so badly to protect her. The next day, I met with a therapist. Then a career counselor. Then a realtor. Big changes were coming. 3 months later, here's where things stand. I've accepted a job offer in Seattle. Fresh start, new city. My apartment is half packed already. Megan and I meet for coffee once a week. Sometimes we talk about the past. Sometimes we just sit in silence. It's awkward and messy and nowhere near fixed, but it's something. James moved back in with his parents. I heard he's attending AA meetings. Good for him, I guess. Tyler reached out once to apologize. I blocked his number. My parents are adjusting to their new, smaller life. They've started volunteering at a grief support group for adoptive families. Too little too late? Maybe. But they're trying. Yesterday, Megan asked if she could visit me in Seattle sometime. I said I'd think about it. The boat tour guy from Greece still texts occasionally. We're just friends, but he's planning a trip to the States next year. Maybe I'll show him around Seattle. I'm not going to pretend this story has a neat, happy ending. My family is still fractured. Trust is still a work in progress. Some days I'm still angry enough to scream into my pillow. But I'm no longer defined by what happened. I'm not the girl whose fiancé married her sister anymore. I'm just me. Rebuilding, recovering, moving forward. The strangest part? I found Megan's letter while packing and reread it. At the very end, in tiny handwriting I missed the first time, she'd written, "You were always the strong one." I hated that most of all. Turns out, she was right about that. I am strong. Strong enough to leave the past behind. Strong enough to decide who gets to be part of my future. As for that teddy bear, I packed it. Some things are worth saving, even after everything falls apart.